Why erase file with random patterns instead of all zeros or ones? Computer files aren't actually removed when they are deleted on Windows. The address pointer is simply released and that space freed for overwrite later. For sensitive information, it is recommended that you erase it with a scrubber that obscures the file first. It turns out that these scrubbers write a specific sequence of 1's and 0's to the hard drive over several iterations. Why can't you just write all 0's or all 1's to the file and then delete it normally? How could someone manage to recover data from a straight wipe like that any more or less than using multiple iterations and patterns?
The short version: theoretically, the original pattern can still be read by certain sophisticated hardware and software. To ensure the security of your erased data, it must be wiped. The long answer: this URL. Edit: in fairness to those that have already voted, I'm leaving my answer as originally written. However, do read the comments for full disclosure. Many people, myself included, feel that anything more than one pass with cryptographically sound pseudorandom data is a waste of time and CPU cycles.
Normal software-only recovery methods cannot recover data that is overwritten once by any pattern. It takes a big budget and sophisticated techniques to recover data that has been overwritten only once. One overwrite is good enough unless you have the FBI, NSA, NASA Act wanting your data. But if you're paranoid, overwrite it 35 times, then disassemble the hard drive and grind the platters into fine dust, then scatter that dust in the open ocean over a 100-mile voyage. Hopefully you won't get stranded on an island in the process. Smile. Of course, modern operating systems can leave copies of deleted files scattered in unallocated sectors, temporary directories, swap files, remap bad blocks, etc. But Gutmann believes that an overwritten sector can be recovered under examination by a sophisticated microscope, and this claim has been accepted uncritically by numerous observers. I don't think these observers have followed up on the references in Gutmann's paper, however. So I can say that Gutmann doesn't cite anyone who claims to be reading the underdata in overwritten sectors, nor does he cite any article suggesting that ordinary wipe disk programs wouldn't be completely effective. This URL.
I think I remember reading something about the magnetic properties of the platters being such that any given random set of byte overwriting a block would not necessarily fully demagnetize or retune an area of disk to a fully neutral state, as some information about the prior data was left behind. Granted, I don't think it was much, but it sounded like enough that a determined forensic analysis could retrieve at least the nature of the wiped data. The idea of the specific patterns of 1's and 0's is that they are such that they work with a hard drive 8/10B encoding, or whatever it is, that is used in order to return the overall magnetic storage block to a neutral state. Have a look at SpinRite, it can apparently show you the various magnetic levels that data is stored at in order to recover and refresh the data on a drive, at least that's what it claims.
Imagine you wrote sensitive corporate details on a whiteboard. Once you leave the room, you simply wipe the details from the board. I can still read most of it by looking at the whiteboard under an angle, or by using advanced techniques to lift minute traces of marker residue from the board. On the other hand, if you wrote random gibberish on the board after wiping it, it would be a lot harder for me to read any of the corporate details. This analogy for overwriting a hard disk with zeros versus random data is why many people believe it is better to overwrite your hard disk with random 0's and 1's, and more than once while you're at it. Simply overwriting all data with zeros will certainly stop 99.9% of the population from reading your sensitive data. Overwriting it with a predictable, as computers are inherently non-random, pattern of zeros and ones will make that a bit harder still. Using a cryptographically secure pattern will make that still harder. And repeating this process will raise the bar even more. But due to diminishing returns, I believe one pass of pseudorandom zeros and ones is more than enough. And if it's not, you'd better bring your hard disk to a secure data destruction company instead of increasing drive wear and wasting CPU cycles and time. Hard disks are cheap.
If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing.